You've been told you're lazy, maybe stubborn, a bit of a procrastinator, or even a know it all. And somewhere along the way, you started believing these were flaws. Bricks in the wall that keep you from becoming the better version of yourself. But what if they weren't flaws at all? What if they were signs that your brain is operating at a level others just don't see? Today we're flipping the script on 5 so-called bad personality traits. Because under the surface, they may actually be quiet whispers of high intelligence. Let's start with a classic. Procrastination. You know the drill. There's a deadline looming like a thundercloud, and you clean your entire kitchen instead. Or you scroll for hours, fully aware you're avoiding the one thing that matters. Everyone says procrastination is laziness. But what if it's something else? Research from the University of San Diego suggests that procrastinators aren't necessarily avoiding work. They're often engaging in something called active delay. That means they're waiting for the right mental moment to strike. High IQ individuals tend to overanalyze and want things to be perfect. They rehearse in their minds, imagining multiple ways the task could go wrong. So they wait, not out of apathy, but because their brain is already working on the problem, just in the background. And when they do finally act, it's often fast, efficient, and startlingly creative. So yeah, you might submit the project at 11:58 p.m., but it's also the version where your mind secretly rewired the entire idea during those hours you were doing nothing. Next up, stubbornness. The word sounds like a red flag on a dating profile. Don't argue with me, I'm always right. But under the surface, what if stubbornness is really just a refusal to accept lazy logic? Highly intelligent people often form ideas through deep thinking, data collection, and pattern recognition. When they land on a belief, it isn't casual, it's calculated. So when someone challenges it with weak reasoning or vague opinions, it's not arrogance that pushes back, it's conviction. It's not about needing to be right, it's about needing ideas to hold water. Imagine someone trying to convince a trained architect that a pile of sticks makes a fine house. That frustration you feel, that's not ego. That's precision demanding clarity. Now let's talk about daydreaming. The trait teachers call a problem the reason you got called out in class for not paying attention. The truth is, zoning out isn't zoning off. In fact, MRI scans have shown that during periods of mind wandering, the brain activates the default mode network, a region associated with memory consolidation, empathy, and complex problem solving. People with high intelligence often use daydreaming as a mental playground. It's not avoidance, it's simulation. They're running scenarios, solving puzzles, building possibilities. So while others see someone staring into space, that person might be writing symphonies in their head or solving social dilemmas 2 weeks before they happen. Daydreaming isn't distraction, it's rehearsal for brilliance. But here's one that's more complicated. Sensitivity. Not just emotional, but sensory. Bright lights feel like interrogation. Background noise feels like someone drilling into your brain. And criticism, it doesn't just bounce off, it sinks in and echoes. People often label this as being too sensitive, like it's a defect. But high sensitivity is frequently linked with something called depth of processing. According to psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron, highly sensitive people process information more deeply and notice subtle details that others miss. Their nervous systems are more reactive, not in a fragile way, but in a tuned-in way. It means they feel more, yes, but it also means they notice patterns, textures, tones, and implications. What feels like fragility might actually be a finely calibrated instrument, picking up on the world's whispers, while others only hear its shouts. And let's not forget the classic accusation, overthinking. People say it like it's a curse. You're overthinking again. You need to let it go. But for many high IQ individuals, overthinking is not about being stuck. It's about being thorough. Their brain is designed to forecast. It runs simulations, it projects conversations, outcomes, emotional ripples. This isn't worry, it's mapping. Overthinkers aren't just replaying a conversation. They're analyzing tone, word choice, context, facial expressions. They're doing a forensic examination of the everyday. While others say, it doesn't matter, their brain says, but what if it does? This hyper-awareness can be exhausting, but it's also the reason they're rarely caught off guard. It's the brain's way of protecting itself and others from future harm. Let's dig into another misunderstood trait. Emotional detachment. You've probably met someone, or maybe you are someone who gets labeled as cold, distant, or too logical. When others are crying, they're analyzing. When people panic, they stay eerily calm. It can come across as robotic, even uncaring. But emotional detachment doesn't always signal a lack of empathy. In some cases, it's a sign of mental regulation, your brain's way of creating space to think clearly. Studies in neuroscience show that people with higher intelligence often regulate their emotions not by suppressing them, but by stepping outside of them. They see the emotional storm, and instead of standing in it, they watch it from a hill. That distance allows them to make decisions that are less reactive and more strategic. It doesn't mean they don't feel. It just means they can filter. Sometimes, when emotions run high, that filter is exactly what's needed. Here's another one people love to criticize, being argumentative, always questioning, always pushing back, always needing to have the last word. Sounds exhausting, right? But in the right context, this behavior isn't about ego. It's about curiosity and critical thinking. Intelligent people don't accept claims at face value. They want to understand the why, the how, the what if. They poke holes, not because they want to win, but because they want the truth to survive. This is the foundation of scientific thinking. Challenge the claim until it either collapses or becomes bulletproof. Argumentative people often aren't trying to be difficult. They're trying to refine an idea until it can actually stand. So yes, they might ruin a dinner conversation about aliens or politics, but they'll also be the ones who spot the flaws in a dangerous plan or a too-good-to-be-true scam. And speaking of discomfort at dinner parties, let's talk about social awkwardness. It's the thing that makes you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, or overthink how many seconds of eye contact is normal, or rehearse saying hi 5 times in your head before actually entering a room. Society often links intelligence with smooth, confident communication. But the truth is, people with high cognitive ability often struggle with social norms. Not because they lack empathy, but because their brains are wired for depth, not small talk. They get stuck trying to answer "how are you" with sincerity instead of reflex. They notice micro signals in a conversation that others miss, which makes their internal social dashboards flash like a Christmas tree. Social awkwardness in these cases isn't a flaw. It's a sign that the brain is processing too much, not too little. And while others glide through conversations with autopilot banter, the socially awkward are trying to fly the whole plane, manually. Let's shift gears to something a little darker. Pessimism. We often celebrate positivity. Optimism is seen as strength, light, leadership. But pessimism? That's just negativity, right? Not so fast. Strategic pessimism, or defensive pessimism, as psychologists call it, is a mindset where people imagine worst-case scenarios in order to prepare for them. And here's the twist. These people often outperform their optimistic peers in real-world problem-solving. Why? Because while others are shocked when things go wrong, pessimists already built the escape plan. Their constant scanning for danger isn't defeatism. It's preparation. It's not that they don't believe in success. It's that they want to guarantee it by accounting for every possible failure. It's exhausting, yes, but it's also deeply intelligent. A mind that prepares for the worst is often the one that makes it through. And then there's introversion, often misunderstood even now. Why don't you come out more? Why are you so quiet? Are you mad at us? Introverts hear this on loop. But introversion isn't shyness. It's not fear of people, it's preference for depth. Research has shown that introverts tend to have thicker prefrontal cortices, the part of the brain associated with deep thought, planning, and decision-making. They thrive in solitude because that's where their minds stretch the farthest. While extroverts gain energy from the outside world, introverts regenerate by going inward. It's not about avoiding connection. It's about valuing meaningful connection. So no, they're not being rude by staying home. They're recharging the very system that allows them to think, create, and solve in ways the world often takes for granted. And maybe the most uncomfortable one, existential anxiety. You know the feeling, you're just trying to do the dishes and suddenly you're wondering about the meaning of life, the heat death of the universe, or why we even exist. It sounds dramatic, maybe a little unstable, but it's actually a known phenomenon among highly intelligent individuals. Philosophers call it existential intensity. It's the tendency to see through the surface of things, to constantly question, analyze, and seek depth, even in the most mundane. And it can be painful because when you see too much, you feel too much. But it's also a gift. It means your mind isn't satisfied with simple stories. It wants truth. Even when it's uncomfortable, that kind of thinking changes things. It invents. It challenges. It evolves. So what do we do with all of this? You've spent your whole life being told these traits are problems, something to fix, suppress, or feel ashamed of. But what if they're not flaws to be corrected, but clues to be understood? What if your overthinking is really your brain's way of trying to protect you? What if your procrastination is your creativity operating in stealth mode? What if your awkward silences mean you're trying to say something that actually matters? See, here's the thing. Intelligence isn't always clean and shiny. It doesn't always look like acing tests, or making speeches, or solving puzzles in record time. Sometimes intelligence is messy. It's quiet, it's uncomfortable, it's the person who doesn't talk much but observes everything. The one who hesitates before speaking, not because they don't have anything to say, but because they have too much, and they're trying to say it right. The one who doesn't follow trends blindly, who asks why a little too often, who doesn't always play nice because nice sometimes means lying. Highly intelligent people often walk through life carrying a quiet burden. They feel things more deeply. They see patterns where others see coincidence. They doubt themselves more, not because they lack confidence, but because they know how complex everything really is. They challenge authority, not for rebellion's sake, but because truth matters more than comfort. They wrestle with meaning. They get stuck in their heads. They struggle to fit into systems that weren't built for minds like theirs. And the world doesn't always reward that. In fact, it often punishes it. Think about it. How often are you praised for saying less? For worrying? For delaying action? For zoning out? Rarely, if ever. And yet, those very habits, in the right light, might be the ones that set your brain apart. But this isn't about romanticizing pain or excusing bad behavior. Being difficult or avoidant or emotionally withdrawn doesn't automatically make someone intelligent. Intelligence isn't an excuse. It's a context. It means we need to ask why someone acts the way they do before we rush to judgment. It means we need to look beneath the surface, especially when that surface is awkward or anxious or distant, because sometimes just beneath it is a mind working at full speed, quietly, relentlessly, brilliantly, And that brings us to the final point, the most important one. If you've ever been told that something about you is too much, too intense, too emotional, too analytical, too quiet, too late, too deep, maybe the problem wasn't you. Maybe the world just didn't know how to listen. Because here's the truth. Highly intelligent people often speak in frequencies that most others aren't tuned into. Not because they're better, but because they're different. And different isn't wrong. It's rare. And rare is powerful. So the next time you find yourself lost in thought, or defending a hill no one else cares about, or rewinding a conversation from 3 weeks ago, pause. And remember, this might not be brokenness. This might be brilliance. Just in disguise. You're not lazy. You're strategic. You're not rude. You're protective. You're not cold. You're composed. You're not weird. You're wired differently. And maybe that's exactly what makes you incredible.